Hello jet ski fans and welcome to another video. In this one I'm going to be doing some more work on the V8 jet ski manifold for the Jet Ski Brothers. Stay tuned because Oh man, this is embarrassing. I'm gonna be right back. I just realized I'm still wearing my work clothes. I'm gonna get changed into my YouTube creator clothes and I'll be right back. All right, that's much better. Now let's get down to business. In the previous video, I told you guys that this was going to be a 3-part series, and that was the plan all along. What has changed? Well, two things. One, this project is taking a little bit longer than I expected, but two, and most importantly, is that you guys are actually a lot more interested in the details about this project than I had assumed. What I plan on doing now is breaking this video series into a few more parts so that you guys can get a more detailed view of what is happening. So let's just get right into it. Before I get into the welding and go any further with this project, I need to mark out the locations of these holes in the back of the flanges so that I can figure out exactly where to drill those holes, because it's going to be a lot easier to do now than afterwards. I've made this little tool to mark the locations of the holes. It's a bolt cut to a point, and then I've filed a few flats on it so that I can actually thread it in and out. Get a couple of bolts to line it up. And there you have it. There is the indent from the pin. Now I gotta take it out and do that same thing 5 more times. I bought these radius tools a couple of months ago and I've never used them. I bought them just in case I had a situation where I would want to use them, and I've found that situation. I'm going to put a radius on the edge of the flanges for 2 reasons. One, because it will look nicer, and also because I don't want this top edge interfering with the head and causing a fitment issue. This is future Joel realizing that I screwed up and didn't get a shot of the radius on the flange or really explain why I put it there. But you can see there's a nice radius on the engine side. That's this side of the flange. It's nice and rolled over there. And now I'll take you guys over to the engine and show you what it would have interfered with. All right, so the engine is actually upside down-ish right now. And you can see there is one square edge on that flange and the other edge is rounded. And the rounded edge kind of almost touches these little nibs. I don't know why they're there or what they're for, but when there was a square shoulder on the flange, it actually rested perfectly up against there. And that meant that any misalignment whatsoever would cause it to jam, which could cause it to not be bolted down properly and leak. And we don't want that to happen, so I decided to put that radius on there. I know that this is probably really hard to see and maybe hard to understand, but when I'm welding this together, I want to try to make sure that the bottom seam where this piece meets this piece is also where it meets the flange, so that it's one weld bead around. It doesn't make sense to make it more than one, and it would actually make it weaker and a little bit trickier if I tried to do a few beads of weld through that area. So if I can do it all together, it will save me some time and it will work out a lot better. So I'm going to eye it up on the bottom side and figure out where that would be. And then I'm going to mark it off on the top here. Then what I'm going to do is get my calipers and I'm going to scribe a line all the way across and make sure that they're the same on all 8 holes. So this is what I'm up to now. I've taken all the primary runners and I've marked a line in them in the lathe to get a very clear indication of where I need to cut them. Now I'm cutting them in the bandsaw. I'm going to walk you guys through a process of how I'm doing one of them, but I'm not going to film the whole thing because it gets quite repetitive. Now what I'm doing is taking my calipers, I line them up along the line on the pipe, which is right here. And I measure, and this one, I know you can't see, but it is 2.8925. So I need to take 93 thousandths off of this. I'm gonna check it now just because I'm sneaking up on it. I don't want to overshoot. And it's a good thing that I did because we are exactly on the money. Here's one that I just cut off in the lathe or trimmed up in the lathe, and you can see it is 2.801. Here's another one that I did. Line it up along that same mark. And it is 2.801. I have all these pieces cut to length now, and I've got them lined up so that I can check to make sure that they are actually the same. As you can see, the bottoms of the pipes are lined up perfectly with the aluminum bar that they're sitting on. And at the top, there is no gap. They are perfectly aligned with that plate, which means that they are all the same angle. I had one that was cut out different and I was going to use it, and I decided to remake it. It was the test piece that I made at 17.5 degrees, and then I decided to change them to 20 degrees. And so yeah, I remade that one, and now they are all exactly the same. I'm now going to deburr all of these and then take them over to the belt sander and take the edge off of them. Alright, so I've got these pieces all sorted out and they're pretty much ready to be welded together, except they need to be cleaned up. Pretty much goes for all of the rest of these bits. I thought I would set some of this stuff up roughly to show you guys some of the difficulties that I'm going to have with welding this together. This primary exhaust pipe is going to pierce through the water jacket, and it's actually going to be welded to the top of the exhaust log. And quite obviously, it can't be welded to the top of that plate if it's already welded to here. There's no way I could get my welder in here to weld that together. So the order that I have to weld that together in is going to obviously have to be I'm going to have to weld these on here, and then I'm going to have to slide this on with a 1/4 inch spacer in between, and I'm going to have to weld these on. Now the problem with that is that I need these to be aligned exactly, or else this won't slide on afterwards, and these won't line up with the manifold. So these are going to have pieces welded onto them that are then going to go onto the manifold. And if everything isn't lined up perfectly down here to start with, then it's not going to line up when I weld this on and then this on. All of this is quite critical. I need to do a lot of thinking about this before I start doing any actual welding. I need to figure out exactly the steps that I'm going to take. Man, your welds suck. That looks like hot glue gun snot. I made this crazy contraption out of 2 squares and a plate of aluminum to make sure that all of the runners are square to the flange. So what I do is I basically line up, I made a line here and a line for the center of the port here. And there's a line in the center of the tube that goes there, and it sits flat on the plate, but it still could be tipped this way or this way. So I've made this to sit in place, and then I know you can't see it, but basically it sits flat against the plate, and that's where it gets tacked in place. What I've been doing is tacking just at the very tip, and then I bend these so that they go into place. I decided to pull it off of the engine so I could get a decent shot of what I was talking about. I have the one square against the top edge of the flange and this other square keeping this plate square. And so now if I slide it over so that it touches here, you can see there's actually a big gap at this end. So in order to get it square, I can just push it over and hopefully not break the tack. It actually wasn't that far out of square, and then I made a mistake and hit it with my hand and bent it. Alright, there, now it's squared up. I can now put a little bit more weld on it and lock it in place. And this is the point that I made it to before I ran out of argon. It's also almost midnight, so I guess it's a pretty good place to stop anyway. I'm using these 2 plates on here to just hold this in place, and it's bolted down. I've actually taken it off and welded up the backside. I don't think I'll be able to get you guys a shot of that, but it is fully welded out now on the primary runners. As you can see, that's sitting on there nice and flush. I was kind of worried about that. That's why I have these pieces on there. I didn't want anything to go out of alignment. So it looks like I was successful. I ended up going back over these joints with the welder, partly because I didn't like the way they look, but mostly just because I wanted the profile of it to be down a little bit. When I welded it on, it was kind of a high profile. There was a bulge in the joint, and that was running dangerously close to the hull. So I decided to just put more heat into it and make it sink in. If you look down the pipes, down the primary runners, you can see, maybe you can see, I've got good penetration, maybe even a little bit too much, but that can be taken out of there pretty easy with a die grinder. For the sake of keeping this video at a reasonable length, I think I'm going to end it here. Try to get another video edited and out for you guys on Sunday. I do have a whole lot more work done to this manifold, and I am really excited about the progress that I've been making. A few of you have pointed out in the comment section that this exhaust is going to see a very high temperature and that it's a good idea to keep it as cool as possible under the hull. I am going to be addressing some of those concerns in the next video, but yeah, I do have some plans to try to cool off the primary runners. I did say in a previous video that I was not going to jacket them, but I am going to be attaching something to them to try to make them cool. Basically, yeah, we're not going to get into it now because the video is already long enough. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.